This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
This job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customers.
We're always the stupid idiots who take lessons. Just calm down.
Oh, fuck you!
You can't handle the truth.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
In other words, be nice, asshole. So, okay, I have specific break points. Okay. We're going to talk about facts. Fun facts to break up the anger that I think this was really fascinating for me. So welcome to another episode of Q as in Cucumber, the podcast where we point and laugh at stupid companies, customers, and coworkers alike. I'm Lara Mack.
I'm Tanya Edwards.
I'm Jessica James.
Woohoo! We got a throuple going on. Jessica just learned that term.
I did. I'm excited to be involved.
So I read this book. Well, first of all, let's back up. How I got turned on to this story. I got turned on to this story from one of our OG super fans, like Buddha.
Buddha.
We love Buddha. Love you. Sends us stuff all the time. And Buddha sent me a New York Times article. It was right after Elizabeth Holmes' conviction. Mm-hmm. And the title of the New York Times article was Worse Than Theranos. And I was like, well, fuck. What is this ride? And you and I were going to get together to record. And I read the article and was just fucking flabbergasted. And I thought, okay, we'll talk about it. Well, then I Googled it because you and I ended up not being able to get together.
Right.
And I found out just a few days before a book had been released.
Oh.
An audiobook.
Oh,
there's an audiobook. We're doing a deep
she's-
dive. It's just what's going to happen.
Right.
So it's a book by Evan Hughes. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it. It's called The Hard Sell by Evan Hughes. Crime and Punishment at an Opioid Startup.
Oh.
Fascinating.
Not the opioids.
Not the opioids. This is the hardcore fentanyl
Oh.
shit. And the reason it's worse than Theranos is with Theranos, we think people could have died from taking the false medical information that her magic box was providing. With this story, people died.
Wow.
A lot of people died from this. A lot of lives were ruined.
That fentanyl stuff ain't no joke.
No.
So
it's
Sophia
not.
had to call 911 at her job over the summer.
Really?
Because her knee did that weird thing, and they didn't know what else to do, right? So they called 911. I go up there real quick, and the ambulance is putting her in the thing, and they were just like, okay, so they were asking her, we want to give you something for the pain, because she was in, like, it would not, her kneecap was on the side of her leg again, and it wouldn't go back. And they were like, so we want to give you something, and one of her choices was fentanyl, and she was absolutely adamant that they do not give her fentanyl.
No.
I have it documented as an allergy for me.
Do you really?
In my medical record.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
It's nasty.
Well, when I was having Gabby, because I didn't have time for an epidural and stuff, and I had never had fentanyl before.
Oh, God.
And they're like, well, we're just going to give you this. It'll help with the pain.
Fucks you
when
up.
they gave me that, like, I could not stand how I felt. And so when I went to go have Olivia, I said, I will not take fentanyl again. Do not give it to me.
Right.
And so she put it down as me having an allergic reaction to it.
Good.
I tell you what, though, they snuck that shit into me when I had Liam.
Did they really? No shit.
So, like, because I'm there giving birth, my epidural didn't work, of course. And I'm in the middle of having labor and everything, and they tell me they're going to give me something for pain, but I wasn't thinking about it. And all of a sudden,
you felt it.
I felt it, and I was like, you motherfucker.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, I have it down as an allergy.
Oh, my God. They ended up giving Sophia ketamine, which she wasn't happy about either.
No.
They take her into the hospital, and I had to go park my car. I followed. And I get back into the room where they have her waiting. They have the rails pulled up on the bed, and Sophia's leaned over the rails like this. Fucked.
Oh, if you've ever watched, there's a stand-up special by, I love Neil Brennan. He created the Chappelle Show with Dave Chappelle.
Okay.
Right, and he does stand-up. And he does this special, it's a special called Three Mics. But he talks about how he had battled depression for years and years and years. And he was getting, like, desperate for some sort of relief. And he found this new, and I actually just saw an ad for it the other day that I was like, really? they're using ketamine for treatment of depression, where you go in to a doctor's office and you get
high as balls.
You get hooked up with government pharmacological level ketamine and trip your fucking balls off for like a couple hours.
Well, I know that they
and
do.
then leave.
I know that they've been looking at like hallucinogens.
Yeah.
Like,
Again?
Yeah. For depression and anxiety, stuff like that. I just don't know how I feel.
Haven't we been there, done that? Like,
I thought
with the
we
LSD and the ecstasy, like
But
back in
now they're talking about shrooms though, like
Oh, well,
mushrooms.
God.
I don't know. I know when I was doing all the raves and stuff, ketamine was quite popular in the little rave circles. People walking around
Special
snorting
K,
some Special K.
Yeah.
I don't know, mushrooms. I mean, you gotta be in the right place.
Yeah, because I would
Yeah.
think, and that's what scares me, because I'm thinking, okay, so I've done shrooms before, right? If you're not in the right headspace when you do that kind of shit, you're gonna fucking...
It's gonna be a bad trip.
Yeah, you're gonna see all kinds of, like, iguanas trying to chase you with pitchforks, and Satan's coming out of your dog's water dish. You're just... You don't know what you're gonna see.
Well, a lot
like
of
the wall was breathing at me one time. The wall was breathing. I was like, the wall is breathing.
I remember that guy when I worked at the cell phone company. I don't know if I've ever told this story on the show. I worked the 5 in the afternoon to 1:30 in the morning shift. I worked Fridays and Saturdays. So we would get the drunk dials and the high people calling, and they were always so much fun.
Yeah.
Truly. You just fuck with them. At a certain point, you just fuck with them.
Yeah.
And this guy called, and he was screaming that there were little monsters coming out of his phone. And he wanted me to send him a new phone or tell me how to stop the little monsters from coming out of the phone. So and I'm trying to talk to him like a normal person. And finally, I was just like, oh my God, fuck it. I was like, okay, sir, this is a very serious question that I need to know. The little monsters, what color are they? Are they green or are they yellow? And I just picked 2 colors because I was like, maybe they're one. I was like, are they green or are they yellow? This is very important. Are they green or are they yellow? And he was like, they're green. And I said, oh, that's something you got to call Nokia about. Are you serious? I did. And he was like, oh, okay, bye. I was like, thank God he's off my fucking phone.
That's a Nokia problem. That's not a phone. Yeah, that's not a service.
Oh, that's not your cell phone carrier's problem. That's the problem with the phone itself. So call Nokia.
They're notorious for the little green monsters.
They are little bastards. Jessica's looking at me like, why did you do that?
Poor Nokia.
I'm sure Nokia was just like, what the fuck?
The lady at the phone store
said that this is a problem. I don't know. Anyway, okay. So fentanyl. Fentanyl just is like a baseline to understand what it is. It's measured in micrograms, which is 1/1,000,000th of a gram, because fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than morphine and 50 times more powerful than heroin. It is actually responsible for about half of all opioid ODs right now is fentanyl. And it's so sad. I have a friend on Facebook that his nephew found Oxycontin that was laced with fentanyl and thought it was candy and ate it and almost died. It is awful. It is wicked shit. And the thing about fentanyl that I think gets lost a lot in the marketing and just the development of it is this is not a drug that is designed for you to take and live a functional life. That is...
Oh, yeah, no.
It's... Opioids like Vicodin, Oxy, things like that, people can use those to manage their pain and still live a functional life. Fentanyl? No.
Yeah.
That is not what it is designed for. Okay?
Who even made this shit knowing that it was this strong? Like,
it was actually synthesized in the 1960s, and it was only for patients in hospital settings. It was only approved for epidurals. At the time, as an anesthesia, they used it.
I could see that.
And they used it for, and this is something I really wanted to ask you about, they use it for what they call breakthrough cancer pain, which is, you take a pain pill when you're going through cancer treatments, and it brings the pain down to a certain level, but the pain can spike and basically break through the opioid or whatever pain medication that you're taking, and it makes the opioid kind of useless. So what fentanyl was used for was for what they call breakthrough cancer pain, for people that are dying and trying to make them comfortable in their last
like in a hospice setting, if somebody's metastatic or something like that.
Exactly. Did they ever talk to you about like the possibility of breakthrough cancer pain?
So they, when they first, so the first pain they talk to you about is because the chemo and the drugs that they give you severe joint pain.
Right.
So what they do is they have you on steroids, and then this is a kick. You take Claritin.
Really?
You take Claritin because it helps. It's a antihistamine, I guess, and it helps to break down something so that it helps with the pain. And then
interesting. I did not know that.
Some pain meds, and they never gave me fentanyl, and then they have you taking Claritin because Claritin helps with all of that.
Right.
So, but then what they explain to you is if this does not work, if you jump a stage, if your cancer metastasizes, then we look at giving you other drugs for pain. We look at giving you different treatment plans, and they go over like this whole, they don't go into it really a lot with you.
Yeah.
And then they kind of touch on what the next step is going to be if you start to move stages or if you're not receptive to the treatment.
So I find it really interesting the fact that you are a person who experienced cancer, went through it, and this fentanyl stuff wasn't even presented.
No,
as an
because
option.
it wasn't metastatic.
This medicine that this company developed and marketed, there was a study even before it was launched that said that this type of fentanyl drug was being prescribed. 1 out of every 5 people it was prescribed to had cancer. So 4 out of every 5 didn't even have cancer. They were just giving it out. So this company is called Insys, Insys. And the drug that they developed is called Subsys, Subsys. And the drug was developed and launched and marketed in such a way that was so blatantly illegal that ultimately the top guys actually all went to jail. Almost all of them.
Jeez.
And that makes this case incredibly unique because it was so bad. Most pharmacy companies now built in, I call it a fuck-up budget. It's cheaper to settle the lawsuits than it is to fix the problem. So they create a budget to pay for it. And they know they can just write a check and get out of trouble. These guys didn't.
Oh.
Which is why I find it to be the most fascinating. So, here we go. We're going to talk about the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, which is what I call these guys.
Nice.
There were 4 guys at the top. 3 of them ended up going to jail.
All right.
1 of them got immunity. So we're going to talk about who they are, and then we'll get into the story. So the head guy is this guy named John Kapoor, Horseman number 1. John Kapoor was born in India, and he was actually part of a pretty high-class, wealthy family. His father was a judge, and they lived a really comfortable life. But when part of India was separated off and became Pakistan, they lived on the wrong side of the border. So they ended up losing everything and living in pretty awful conditions, basically. But he was really smart, like freakishly smart. And he graduated high school at 13. He earned a pharmacy degree. And then he got a fellowship to come to Buffalo in the United States to get his graduate degree. And what he did, it was smart. It was really smart. He got in early. This is during the 80s. In his mid-30s, he worked at a small company that was failing. And the people who owned the company, this pharma arm of the company, was failing. They told him when they hired him, we're probably going to shut it down. It's failing, whatever. And he kind of got hired with the idea of, I will buy this from them and I will take it and make it my own company since it's already kind of pre-built, and he felt like he could turn it around. So eventually that's what he did. He got a loan from a company called Northern Trust to purchase the division and strike out on his own. And he called it Life O Med. And the thing about Lifomed is he figured out and focused very early, once again, this is the 80s, where generic drugs really started to become much more popular. And the government, because they were less expensive, was giving out incentives for, because, you know, Medicare, Medicaid, all those programs, like this costs less for them to do. So they were giving out incentives for producing generic drugs. So that's what he did. And he turned around, made a shit ton of money. He did have some controversy early on. And this is where I'm like, why was he still allowed to be in this world? But whatever. The first thing that he did, which nothing really happened with this. Do you guys remember that guy a couple years ago, Martin Shkreli? They called him Pharma Bro. Do you remember that asshole?
Yes.
So he's this skeezy little creature. Just to look at him is creepy. And he raised the price on a cancer or on a AIDS drug for children to like $7,000 for a month or
supply,
like something. And that he was just like, well, if they want to live,
wow,
fuck them. He was just nasty.
He's just a skeevy little fucker.
He really is. He's just disgusting. Well, this guy, John Kapoor, was the original Pharma Bro.
Jesus Christ. He was
because
like Pharma Daddy.
Yep, Pharma Daddy. There you go. He had a monopoly on an antibiotic drug that was most effective for AIDS patients who developed pneumonia. And when he learned that, he quadrupled the price of the drug. You got to remember, this is the 80s.
And AIDS was so new, and they didn't know what it was. They didn't know how the people got it. They didn't know how to treat it. They didn't know anything.
So you have a medication that you know is working, and you quadruple the price for people that are in the most desperate, panicked way. Right. So there were protests, but nothing seemed to have happened. But in 1987, the company had gone from 20 employees to 800 employees. Like it was a big company. But in 1987, government regulators noticed some red flags, and they ended up seizing drugs from a plant. And they found out that this company had submitted false reports to the FDA to get drugs approved. Right there. Right fucking there. Why wasn't this person banned from this industry?
And that place should have been shut down. They should have banned them and yeah.
Oh, no. John Kapoor John Kapoor got smart. He didn't tell his investors about it. And it wasn't made public for a while.
I need some investors. God damn it.
Right? So he turned around and before it got out, he turned around and sold the company to part of some of the investors, the original investors in the company, this Japanese company. He made $130 million from the sale.
Greed is a sin. I say it all the time. Greed is a fucking sin. Greed's a sin.
And then these investors who bought this company find out they're left holding the bag. They got to deal with the government. They got to pay all the fines. They got to do everything. And they had no fucking clue before they bought it. So they sue Kapoor. They're like, what the fuck? What did you do to us? Kapoor sues them back. It's a big court battle. Kapoor ends up winning. But he ends up winning for the most interesting reason that I'm like, yeah, that should have been a clue to you, government.
Yeah.
Just maybe. This is the reason that he won the lawsuit. The court basically said, because they were investors in the company already, they were on the board, all this stuff. Before all this happened, the court basically said there were so many blatant problems for so long, and you had special access already to that information that should have made you suspicious. And if you weren't going to ask the questions, you deserve what you get. Looking back at the end, I'm like, government, you didn't ask this motherfucker the questions that you should have. You knew his history.
Right.
You knew what he had done before. Why weren't you asking the questions?
But you know what, though? If you're rich,
mm-hmm.
then certain things don't get asked, and a lot of shit gets swept under the rug.
And spoiler alert, let me tell you, when Kapoor got arrested, his reaction was priceless rich person.
Well, he's probably just absolutely taken aback.
He was like,
somebody had the nerve.
I thought this went away. Like, he actually said that. I thought this went away with a check. Like, that's truly what he believed and was shocked. that he was arrested.
I'm appalled, sir.
Clutch my pearls. What are you
Good
doing?
sir. I just feel like he's going to
I got
smack
the
somebody with his
vapors.
glove.
I got the vapors. Oh,
Oh,
my
wow.
God. He was actually called before Congress to testify and pled the fifth.
There we go again.
Of course. So let's back up and we're going to jump forward a little bit and talk about Horseman number 2. The second horseman of the apocalypse is Mike Babbage. Babbage was born in Chicago. He was super into football and WWF wrestling, WWE now.
Lord.
He
I don't trust anybody who's like into fucking wrestling.
I was into wrestling for a long time. Look at you. She's like, I don't like you anymore. I don't watch it anymore. As soon as The Rock left, there was no point because I love The Rock.
I did not like him as a wrestler, and it took me a little bit to get to enjoy him as an actor.
I used to watch it with Avery when he was little, and I don't watch like all of his movies. Like what was that, Standing Tall or whatever?
Walking Tall.
Walking Tall.
Oh,
you
so
know,
good.
Those movies.
it.
I like him more in the funnier
family
ones.
movies, yeah.
Yeah.
I do love him in Jungle Cruise. He's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's funnier, and I like him better in those movies.
Jumanji.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I like those movies, but I don't
I
want to.
love him.
Well,
my goal in life at a certain point, because he would do this move where he would rip off his elbow band
Yeah,
and throw it
throw
into the
it.
crowd. My goal in life was to catch one of those. God damn it! I wanted one.
I like how he kind of reprised his rock role at the Super Bowl this year when he was like,
If you smell
yeah.
what the rock
I'd like to bite
is
him right on his
cooking.
butt. He's just sexy as
Probably
hell.
break your
He's
teeth,
sexy
though.
as hell.
Oh my God, yeah. He's
My
got-
kids love the shit out of him.
He's yummy.
He
so
is.
yummy. I know they don't like him because he's yummy. I
Well-
like him because he's yummy.
Gabby
No,
might.
Gabby might.
So, anyways,
Sorry, we'll get back to the story.
Sorry, that was a nice little segue.
That was a nice little segue. All right, so horseman number 2, Mike Babbage.
Yes.
He was Catholic, born in 1976. He came from a blue-collar Chicago family, tall, broad, like kind of big dude. And he worked for that Northern Trust, the company that Kapoor got his loan from to buy Lifomed. And he established himself very early in the financial world. He stood out from his new hire class and he performed exceptionally well. And they started moving him from like failing group to failing group. And he was able to pick up everybody's performance and really elevate. So he was good and he established himself very, very young. But one day he goes out to lunch with the head of his division and the head of the division encouraged him to quit. And he said, there's another job working for John Kapoor. At this point, Kapoor had the $130 million and blah, blah, blah. And kind of like the DeVosses we talked about with our Theranos coverage, the DeVosses have a company that all it does is manages the family's wealth. That's it. And Kapoor did the same thing. It was called EJ Financial.
Need somebody to manage my will. Look after my pennies.
Can you babysit these, please? Thank you. But it wasn't a pharma company or anything like that. It was just a family business that managed his wealth. And he interviewed with Kapoor. He didn't really feel like a personal, you know how you have an interview sometimes and you walk out and you're like, nailed that.
Yeah.
Or you walk out and you're like, I don't know. He really did not feel like a connection. Kapoor kind of looked like a little old professor, grandpa kind of dude. But he eventually got a job offer in the mail. He didn't even call and tell him.
Did you just send him a letter?
He sent him a letter.
Snail mail? Like,
Yes. And he was like, oh, I guess I got a job offer.
Right, like,
Thank you very much.
is that the way they did it back then?
I don't know. Considering this was like, I think 2002.
Oh, no. It was, I mean, never mind. I just...
Right?
Never mind.
This was a bit much.
A handwritten note on stationery.
Kinda, yeah. I was like, all right, gotcha, dude.
Dear Mr. Babish, I hope this letter finds you well.
I would like to offer you a position.
Salutations and warmest regards.
Wishing you good health.
Best of luck in your future endeavors.
There you go. So Kapoor had met his wife, Editha. She was a blonde cheerleader from Buffalo. She came from a Catholic family. Her family seemed to be very accepting. They had 2 ceremonies, a Hindu and a Catholic. They actually gave away a lot of their money. They were involved in a ton of different charities. and they adopted 4 children, a lot of whom had severe disabilities, and they cared for them. And he called her Bunny. They clearly were very much in love with each other, and I do believe that. He would end up using Editha later on as the excuse.
Oh, God, of course.
For all of this, which, yeah. So Babbage came on as a portfolio analyst, and he didn't really have a lot of contact with Kapoor in the first few years. Kapoor, at this point, now that he sold the company and his finances were being managed elsewhere, he was going into other pharma companies kind of as a rescue artist. You know, going in and even stepping into the role as CEO to like fix these companies. So for the first few years, it was just the two of them, but they didn't really have a relationship.
Okay.
Necessarily. So we'll jump ahead and we'll talk about the other 2 horsemen. The third horseman, who is the one that didn't go to jail, he ended up getting immunity. I struggle with this guy a lot because he wants the credit for building this empire, but he wants to distance himself from the shit that went on that built the empire.
Right.
So it's, yeah, I struggle with him. His name is Matt Napolitano, and he had worked for a company called Cephalon, which we'll talk about a little bit more. He actually hosted and trained classes on how to market these fentanyl drugs legally. So he knew the rules really, really well. But he grew up in Pennsylvania. He was analytical. He was a worrier, very intelligent. He was a flirt, but a total goob. But where I do feel a little kind of connection to him is I feel like for us in our roles in our previous job, we would have to point things out that felt like a duh.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be Napolitano's role in a lot of this, where they didn't have in-house counsel. They didn't have a compliance department. They were proposing to do things that he was like, you're a pharma company. We are a pharma company. What are you talking about? Like, he would just very frustrated a lot in just, what the fuck are you doing? But he didn't seem to have the balls to do anything necessarily about it. So he kind of went along. So he was saying it, but he wasn't doing anything about it. He was the head of marketing. He was the VP of marketing. And then the fourth horseman, the guy that really created most of these fucking problems.
Oh.
This piece of shit. I really do not like this man. His name is Alec Burlakoff. Alec Burlakoff is that guy that you meet that is just a salesman. And it's just, you just want to.
He's always on. He's always.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, God, I hate that.
You just want to take a shower after you talk to him. Where you're just like, yuck. You always feel like they're putting on a performance.
Yeah.
And some people fall for that.
Right.
And some people are just like, just go away. He actually he started his career as a school counselor. And he loved the job, but hated the pay. And a doctor whose kid went to the school was like, I think you would actually be great in pharma sales. You should look into that. So he did, and he started at Eli Lilly. He absorbed the science, but he also understood the psychology of marketing and sales. And he figured out what made people tick and how to get into their good graces. Because you know how they say, like, you buy from people you like.
Yeah.
Right? We would say it in collections all the time. People pay who they like. The companies that are calling and threatening you, they're not going to call you back first to pay you.
Right.
They're going to call back the people that they like.
Yep.
And what he reminds me of, there was a doctor that he was marketing to that he knew was a devout Jew. And he was Jewish. And he would show up in a yarmulke just because he knew that this, like, he found
a yarmulke and a brisket.
like he really did he did these things, right? And it reminded me of that guy, we'll call him Bob, that I had in collections when I was on the Cal side, where Bob would be talking to somebody and they would be like, oh, I can't pay. I just lost my job, blah, 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 blah. And instead of walking them through the programs that were federally approved, that anybody could qualify for, he would ask them questions and be like, so what do you do? Oh, I'm a toilet paper salesman. Whatever. And he would say, oh my God, you are in luck. We have a toilet paper salesman program just for people like you. And he would tell them, whatever their profession was, he would tell them that he was building them a program special for toilet paper salesmen.
So what I always tell people whenever, like, on my last team or even whenever we were there, you have to sometimes make it like you're doing them a favor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're doing. You're doing them a huge favor. If I got a deal for you, this is what I can do for you. You have to make it seem like a favor.
Right.
Hey, you know
and
what?
not like something that anybody could get.
Yeah. Yep.
Like a lot of those programs, like those are federally approved programs.
They're not just for you.
No, they're not. Hate to break it to you. So that is who this guy reminds me of, is that rep who would just, and he was good. He made a lot of money. Like he was good because he could do that. He was that natural salesman. Burlakoff was the VP of sales. And with his little attitude and his just persona, he would tell stories kind of to create a mystique around him. He would talk about how his grandfather was a defense attorney who worked with mobsters. He bragged all the time about this. And he really did create this, like, I
don't need this job.
Or if, you're going to end up sleeping with the fishes. If, that kind of bullshit. So those are the four horsemen. So we'll get to how they came together here. So Editha Kapoor ended up getting cancer, breast cancer, in her 40s, I believe. And she got through it and she went into remission and she was better for a long time. And then in her mid-50s, it came back. And her family talked about how you could hear her screaming from across their giant mansion with the pain that she was in. And it was difficult. And when she passed, he completely shut down. Just did not go to work for months, didn't do anything. Like he lost that person in his life. And it was really sad. Hearing the details of that was very, very sad. And Babbage really at that point had stepped up. At that point, Babbage had developed a bit more of a personal relationship with him because he made a good call. There was a company that 25% of Kapoor's money was invested in. I believe it was called Health South.
Ah.
Yeah.
I watched a documentary about Health South. It was like a big fucking Ponzi scheme.
Pretty much. So Babbage Babbage wasn't involved in like pharma sales, but he did dig into the company and he listened to like conference calls. He was reading their public statements and he was like, something smells off. And 25% of your entire portfolio is wrapped up in this company. I think it's a problem. He pushed and presented his case, and Kapoor was like, okay, do it. And he sold 80% of his holding in Health South. Turned out, Health South was committing fraud and resulted in criminal charges.
Yep.
He saved Kapoor millions. And after that, Kapoor would stop by his desk and start asking for his opinions on stuff. Like he went out on a ledge.
Yeah.
But Babbage did notice that Kapoor was, and this is about creating the environment where some of these decisions that would eventually happen, Kapoor wasn't necessarily involved with, but he created the environment that made these decisions possible. He would bring people, like I said, he would go into company to company to company, and when he would bring people along that were successful with him in those endeavors. But if you lost him money or made a mistake, it was okay unless you lost that money or made a mistake because you were being overly cautious.
Okay.
So he created an environment that was like, no, you take the fucking risk.
Right.
And Babbage called it a coldness would set in. All of a sudden you would stop being included in meetings and whatever. And you could see it coming. You knew it was coming a million miles away. But he really created that environment that, no, you risk it or you risk your job. So,
all right.
In 2002, now there's differing dates on this. I don't quite understand, but this is the date in the book. In 2002, they founded Insys Therapeutics, and Babbage wasn't heavily involved yet. It was just one of Kapoor's many investments. But they were trying to do drug development. And usually Kapoor was involved more in generics, but he wanted to get involved in a branded drug. And the idea with Insys originally was to get their first drug, which was called Marinol. Marinol would help with nausea and vomiting induced by chemo or wasting caused by AIDS. It was a synthetic THC.
Yep.
And they thought it would take about 2 to 3 years to develop and about $5 million. And the challenge with doing drug development companies is it's a slow process of development, testing, the review process, and finally approval. And getting through that and having the money and the patience to get through that is difficult. So they were thinking, we'll do this Marinol. This will be the lowest cost, etc. Somebody ended up beating them to the market, and it ended up kind of being a waste of time. But their other idea was a fentanyl spray, a sublingual spray. And later, Kapoor would say that he wanted to develop this because of Editha, because of the pain that she was in and watching her, etc., etc. Later on, Babbage was like, no, that's not why. He saw that addicts were being created.
Right.
And he felt like he could get in on the market.
That's unfortunate.
So this little peek behind the curtain kind of cracks me the fuck up. I call this the vanilla ice rule. There were other drugs out there, other fentanyl drugs out there. They were pretty much identical to this. But it's all about the delivery.
Right.
One was called Actique. Another was called Fentora. One is a patch, and the other is a lollipop that you basically just put on your gums and you swallow. Okay, fine. But Kapoor felt that a sublingual spray would act faster and wanted to develop that. And this is what I find to be hilarious. Just the delivery system alone was enough to get them a patent on this drug.
So just because you could spray it in your mouth?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find that if y'all haven't seen it, there's a very famous video of Vanilla Ice explaining how they didn't rip off under pressure with the ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he added an extra ding in there.
Exactly. The way he explained it was, no, theirs goes ding, 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 ding. Ours goes ding, 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 ding. See, it's not the same.
Yeah.
I call this the Vanilla Ice rule. How did they get a patent for this? It's the same fucking drug. It's just a different delivery system. But it's enough to give you a patent and a corner on this market? This is weird to me.
Sounds like the old payola to me.
Why is this a rule? I don't understand why this is a rule. But these are called TERF drugs. They're called rapid onset opioids, or the thing for TERF, transmucosal immediate relief fentanyl.
Transmucosal.
Transmucosal.
That sounds delicious.
Mm.
Transmucosal.
Give me some of them trans.
Hey kid, do you want to try some transmucosals?
I mean,
Right?
that might deter people from,
Right?
from actually fucking.
Just fucking saying it.
Yeah, I'm on that transmucosal right now. Sounds like you're riding the snot train.
Oh
It just
God.
sounds awful.
It's like that day we had the conversation about our vaginal mucus or whatever with
Oh,
John.
Yeah, we were trying to get
You were trying
poor John.
Poor
He
John was just like,
oh my God.
John puts up with so much from us.
Yes, he
I
does.
swear to God, he's that poor man. Anyway, so Kapoor came to believe that sublingual sprays were the future. It wasn't just fentanyl. It was the sprays.
That was going to be the way it was going down.
Yeah, pretty much. So he really was into developing this. They weren't widely used, but they were so expensive that they matched, and this is before Subsys, just the Fentora and the Actique, their revenues actually matched the same revenues as Oxycontin, even though they had a fraction of the patients because they were so expensive. In some cases, it could be like $3,000 up to $17,000 a month
Really?
for these drugs.
And people were buying it?
Well, no, like insurance and Medicare and
yeah.
Medicaid was
and
paying
then
for
the
it.
amount that they need is so little that I'm sure that
Depending on the amount, like if you needed just a little, it's the $3,000. If you need a lot,
it could be the 17,000, but for the most part, we know like a little bit of fentanyl goes a long way.
Right.
So,
there was one guy that Medicare paid for one patient 10 months over $70,000
Damn. That's
just
insane.
for this drug to ruin their lives. Now, this is another little peek behind the curtain, and then I really want to have a Jessica break. I did not know this, if a drug is developed for breakthrough cancer pain, right? Mm-hmm. But you know it can work for other types of pain, doctors are allowed to prescribe that if they think it helps for what they call off-label, right? Okay. So it's like, perfect example, Wellbutrin.
Yeah.
Wellbutrin for depression, but they found that it helps people quit smoking.
Because they gave it to me when I first got diagnosed. They gave me Wellbutrin. Mm-hmm. You know, I used to smoke a lot, right? So they gave me Wellbutrin. It was this little purple pill.
Yeah.
Took it every day for a couple months and I was fine. But yeah.
But here's the thing I did not know. It is perfectly legal for a doctor to do that. What is not legal are for drug manufacturers to advertise to doctors that it can be used that way.
Right.
That's what's illegal, which I find to be interesting.
So they have to kind of just like figure it out for themselves?
Because what they're basically saying, like, you're the doctor, you're the one with the experience, you're the one who should know, like, what these drugs can do, what they can't do, who they're for. You judge the patient based on seeing them and interacting with them and understanding their needs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But drug companies can't do that.
I can see where that would
get around it.
I can see where that would turn into some sort of liability, like, we're going to give you this Wellbutrin. You're not depressed or anything, but we want you to stop smoking. So I can see where that would kind of, so if you have some people, you know, you're an oncologist and you have some people who you're treating that smoke and it's really not a good idea for you to be smoking anymore, especially during treatment, you can give them this Wellbutrin because this little purple pill is going to help them stop smoking. Right. Like I can see where that could be like a conflict of interest because there are other drugs, obviously, that you can take to get you to stop smoking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, at this point, early 2000s, the opioid crisis was in full swing already. And this is the part that fucking pisses me off. I did not know this. In the 90s and early 2000s, doctors were being encouraged not to fear opioids and to use them more to treat legitimate pain. The belief and what was promoted by what they called key opinion leaders, which were doctors that were hired to go out and speak to other doctors about this stuff, was that people with, even though there was no academic proof of this, that people with legitimate pain couldn't become addicted to these drugs.
So because they were under or experiencing legitimate as opposed to fake pain that's made them intolerant to addiction?
That's what they believed.
And that's what they told people. Who are addicted to anything have some sort of pain issues or like you find a lot of people that are crackheads now that started off taking, you know, Vicodins, 100 times a day. So, yeah.
One doctor, and this is where I'm going to need Jessica. There were doctors that were paraded around the country by the drug companies who were willing to hold a bullhorn up and tell other doctors not to fear opioids and to use them to prevent, quote, needless suffering. And one doctor said in a 1997 video that Oxycontin, he made this video to promote Oxycontin. Oxycontin does not have serious medical side effects. You think about, like, you see old videos of doctors with cigarette commercials. You think that shit doesn't happen. As recently as 1997, they were saying, oh, opioids, no. They're fine. They're good. Don't worry about it.
Was there just not enough evidence for them to be genuinely ignorant about
They just didn't look into, like, there was plenty out there to say, like, this is the... No.
Well, I think anything.
Right. But they would promote this idea of you can't get addicted if you have legitimate pain.
Right.
They didn't look to see. Is that true? Like, they didn't look to see. They were just taking the word of the people that were getting paid by Oxycontin people.
They were just getting sold on it.
Yeah. Pretty much. And that really fucking pisses me off. So I need Jessica to give us a fun fact.
Okay.
To keep me from getting more pissed off and raising my blood pressure. I asked Jessica to come up with fun facts to take little breaks from this story from my own mental health. So
did you ladies know that there are such things as intimacy coordinators for like TV shows and stuff? Like movies?
What?
Oh, put your hand over here, put your leg up there.
No shit.
So the reason I found out about this, and I actually just found this morning because I was just checking my email or whatever. So I've been watching Outlander recently.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw an article about how the guy who plays Jamie hired an intimacy coordinator. And I was like, what the fuck was that? Because you don't look like you need an intimacy coordinator. You seemed like you got things down. And so an intimacy coordinator is somebody who's often used in the film industry to help make sure that everybody feels safe and that they're, not being made to do things that they don't want to do, or, the whole...
No shit.
And so they're there for protection of people's rights, but they are also there to make sure that the actions being taken are living up to the emotions that are expected to be portrayed in the scene.
I wonder if they have those, in porn.
Porn? I know, I thought about that,
Like, grab her boob harder.
Right? So there are people there that you can hire that will come in and witness these scenes so they could be like, okay, now do this and say this like this. And, so there are specific people to direct intimate roles.
Get this job?
I don't fucking know, but I would
want
suck
to
at
know
it.
the resume. I want to know the
I've
resume
had a lot
of the
sex
person.
in my day. I think I'd be good at that job.
Right? And so that was something I literally just learned about this morning, that there are intimacy coordinators.
That is,
Yeah.
that is
I'm
our
going to put
fun
that on my
fact.
resume.
No shit.
I'm an intimacy coordinator.
Right?
I
But
coordinate with my husband every Tuesday and Thursday. That qualifies me for the job.
Right.
So there's your first fun
I've
fact.
coordinated much intimacy.
That's going to be my new pickup line for Mike, and be like, you want to go coordinate some intimacy this evening?
Coordinate some intimacy.
No.
When he comes home next time. Hey, I'm coordinating some intimacy for us
I
right
need
now.
some experience to put on my resume.
Right, I'm trying to get a new job, so can you put me down I'm going to put you down as a reference, okay?
And if you give me a bad reference, so help me God.
Right?
We're divorced. I'm in. You're getting the kids. I'm leaving.
No, an intimacy coordinator.
Oh my
yeah.
God, I love it. Okay. So that is our fun fact break. So let's get back into this awful story. I love it. Thanks for checking out part 1 of our deep dive into Insys and the Hard Sell by Evan Hughes. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss parts 2 and 3. Coming at you soon. Love your faces.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.